I've had to learn to adapt and also understand that slowing down a little bit as far as pace, resting a little bit more, doesn't necessarily mean you can't achieve. That's the other part of the myth of the hustle and grind nows and rest later myth, is that we think that slowing down and enjoy life while we're building this business actually hurts us from achievement. I mean, we're doing very well financially, but yeah, sure, there's probably some things we could do that produces a little bit more income or a different investment that might produce a little bit better return. But at what cost, I think is the question. How much is enough?
Do you have in your mind, do you have enough, or is it always we're striving for the next thing where it's unreachable?
Thriving in Tandem. It's a podcast for you, the married entrepreneur that wants to win in business and marriage at the same time.
Welcome to Thriving in Tandem.
Hey, Thriving in Tandem. Thriving in Tandem family.
Hi, you guys.
See, that's what you get.
Say that fast 10 times.
Well, seems like it's been a minute since we've recorded. So that's what you get. So yeah, we've had it's been a couple, 2-3 weeks since we recorded. We're just kind of hitting a busy stretch. Luckily, we have a lot of, recordings in the can, so to speak. And so we're not going to miss a beat as far as releasing. But we're hitting a busy stretch right now. We just took on a big major project. And of course, we're flying out a couple days to go onboard a new client. So, even us, we preach work-life balance, but we all hit busy stretches. So I think this episode today is that much more appropriate because we're going through kind of the hustle and grind right now in a bit. I mean, that's what some people might call it, but that's not how we call it.
And then when you are in a busy stretch, you kind of plan around it, don't you? For a little bit of fun, relaxation, and a little downtime.
Well, yeah, actually, the day after we get back, we have our 4th or 5th and final Thriving in Tandem fun event, date night event.
For the year.
It's the Argentinian steak wine pairing dinner.
Ooh, doesn't that sound yummy, you guys?
I'm just looking forward to that. So when we get back, probably be a little tired, but the next day we get to be with other married business owners that need some relaxation time like us, right?
A little bit of fun.
So that's another side benefit. So to us, those events don't seem like work, right? I mean, those are actually it's very fun. It's very uplifting because we don't do a lot of business stuff or whatever. It's really to connect and really have fun, get to know each other, and make sure we're allowing these other busy married business owners time or an excuse to get out and have a little bit of fun. And so, today's episode, that's kind of a long intro to today's episode. We're going to talk about the myth of the hustle and grind. You got to hustle and grind now. You rest later. Have you ever heard the expression, I'll rest when I die?
Yes.
Right? It's those high achievers, hustle and grinders that, basically are preaching, there's no time to rest because we got to accomplish, we got to move forward, and then we'll rest when we die, or maybe even not even retirement. We say, certainly that's how some people might think they want to live their life. Unfortunately, especially when you're married, usually both parties don't agree, right? The one that's hustling and grinding is in effect kind of leaving their spouse behind. And even when they work together, because we have a lot of clients, most of our clients do work together at some capacity. And there's always that one, and it's not always just the CEO of the person running the business. It depends on the relationship. There's always one in the relationship that would just love to slow down a little bit and enjoy life a little bit more, right? And so that myth of hustle and grind now and rest later is very harmful.
Well, and I think too, we're not going to talk about this today, but it comes to mind is a lot of times we marry somebody the opposite with us as far as energy levels. And even though I would love to be able to keep up with you and go, I just know I can't do it. So I have to pace myself.
Yeah, and I've had to learn to adapt and also understand that slowing down a little bit as far as pace, resting a little bit more, doesn't necessarily mean you can't achieve, right? I think that's the other part of the myth of the hustle and grind nows and rest later myth, is that we think that slowing down and enjoy life while we're building this business actually hurts us from achievement. And so, maybe there's an extra, if you're already a multimillionaire, maybe you could get another million more. Right? We're doing very well financially, but yeah, sure, there's probably some things we could do that produces a little bit more income or a different investment that might produce a little bit better return. But at what cost, I
Hmm.
think is the question. How much is enough? I
I
mean,
mean, do you have like in your mind, do you have enough, or is it always we're striving for the next thing where we never, it's unreachable?
yeah. I mean, because realistically, if we look at our net worth and our assets and stuff, well, if we stop now and just pulled everything into cash, right, we'd be okay the rest of our life. I mean, we just have to make some adjustments based on what we probably thought we were going to do. Certainly,
Budget it.
we're not going to die. We're not going to be in the poorhouse. I mean, majority of Americans, it seems like we're going on a rabbit trail, but that's okay. Majority of Americans, or the average American, retires with less than $250,000 net worth, not including the value of their house. And so, and yet they make do,
Mm.
right? It's not like these people that are retiring. Certainly we hear about being on fixed incomes and you just have to budget, but it's not like they're in the poorhouse per se, right? And so, that's why I'm saying like we could stop now and be okay the rest of our life, but we want to keep going. But we also know we don't want to kill ourselves, don't want to destroy our relationship. We want to make sure we're enjoying life as we're moving forward, because at the end of the day, our health and our relationship is what's the most important.
Yeah, like Robert was saying, the next week or two, it's going to be super busy. Well, we get back into town from our trip, I'll probably take the following day off. At least I'm giving myself that opportunity, that option, because I don't want to run myself rugged and be tired and exhausted and grumpy for you, not there for our clients.
So, and then certainly as you're thinking about, your business, hopefully you're creating something that's potentially a legacy where you can pass down to your kids, or maybe turn it over to your staff, your employees, be kind of what they call it, ESOP, employee shared owner occupied, ESOP, owner, employee owned, anyways, an employee owned business. But as you're building something for somebody, maybe even to sell or whatever, as you're building a legacy business for the next generation to take over, you want to do it in a way where someone actually wants to take it over. Because if they see what you're going through now and you're just killing yourself to run this business and not having a life, most people, when they go into starting or purchasing a business, they don't want to be married to the business, right? They want the business to actually support and supplement their life, not to take over their life.
Well, I think a lot of times they do it for freedom,
Yeah.
to be able to do the different things they want to do. And then a lot of times it turns into that's all they do
Yeah.
is the business.
That's where I think that's why I believe only 30% of first generation business actually go on to the second generation, whether it's, giving it over to the kids or selling it or whatever. Very few first generation businesses make it to the second. A lot of it because it's not a business worth taking over
Hmm.
or buying.
Well, I think a lot of it is bad planning. Like, that's something you got to start planning way in advance. I know, like, my dad probably would have loved me to take over his business, but at that point, I thought, no way, I don't want to work 6 days a week and most holidays. And I saw what it did to our family. And so I didn't want to live that same life.
Yeah. And certainly,
So I wasn't interested in taking it over.
yeah, when people are purchasing a business and I see that the brand or the business is tied too much to the owner, it's not sellable, or at least
Hmm.
it's not very attractive. Let's put it that way. Sure, you could probably find a buyer at some point, but most likely it's gonna be very hard, if at all, because like I said, they want to build, they want to get a business that gives them a little bit more freedom, not be tied to it. And so in order to really build a legacy business, so this is where we need to get away from the myth of, hustle and grind now, rest later, because if that's your mentality, what happens is you're going to build a business that's going to be very hard to sell, or and if you have kids that you want to take over, it's going to be very hard for them to want to take it over. We're seeing too many, the second generation, next generation, not want to take the family business over because they're like, I don't want that life, is basically what they're saying, right? Just like, and so you want to start to practice that rest part now, meaning you've got to start to position yourself to take more time off, to enjoy life, enjoy being with your spouse, enjoy being with the kids and all that. Because as you start doing that, you start putting the pieces into place, foundation, the processes, the systems, the right people in place in order for the business to continue to run, whether you're there or not. So building a business that will grow even when you're not present is now going to be a legacy business that is also going to be very, very valuable.
And yes, this is doable, you guys. You just have to be super intentional about it. It's not going to happen on its own. It's not going to happen overnight. You're gonna have to let go of some control, get people to come in and help alongside you for that to happen.
Yeah. And you'll avoid burnout.
Yeah, because in your 20s, you might be able to go like gangbusters forever and put all this time and energy in. But I'm telling you, the older you get, your body just can't do it anymore.
And it's not only an age thing, because as you know, honey, most of our clients are under 40, some of them even under 30, and they have gone through burnout or they're on the verge of burnout,
Hmm.
right? And we've had to come in and kind of give that mind shift, just having this kind of just the kind of conversation like we're having now, we're having with our clients when we onboard them, because we can see it. I mean, a lot of times they're saying it. Even if they don't say the word, you can
Hmm.
just feel it and sense it, right?
Well, and when you're burned out, you're no good to anybody
Yeah.
or your work, your family. It's just yourself. You feel horrible.
Yeah, so it's not just an age thing. It definitely is not just an age thing. I mean, I think that's probably one of the biggest surprises I've seen as we start doing the work we do is how many, younger people are on that verge of burnout. And maybe our view is a little bit more biased because people are already on that verge and they obviously know they want help. They need help, right? So they're already at that point and say, hey, no mas, I need help. Let's go find somebody to get on Google or whatever, or through word of mouth, they find us. So I realize that our view might be a little bit more biased, but the fact of the matter is so many business owners under 35 are going through that. And they're perfectly healthy. And if you see them physically, I mean, they look like, I mean, these are strong dudes, right? Or strong women. And it's not like they don't look frail. They don't look sick. You wouldn't know until you have this conversation how close they are to burnout. And so practicing building a legacy business, building a business that is sellable, people want to take over, practice that now. So in other words, start taking a little bit more time off. So for those that can't even take a day off, start taking a day off. If you can't take, 2 days off, start learning how to take 2 days off. So how do you do that, right?
Well, I say to even start smaller than that. Like if you think you can't take any time off, then start something a little bit smaller. Be present in your conversation with your family and friends. Put the phone down. Look them in the eye. Tell them how you're doing. Want to know how they're doing.
Yeah. That's good. And yeah, to your point, maybe take a half day off, right? And take a half day off to go be with your spouse, your family. So what that means is you've got to be able to disconnect, which means you've got to build the trust, which is the hard part, that the house isn't going to burn down based on the business if you're gone and if you're not reachable, right? Which is a huge mental for a lot of businesses. So that's the first phase, is getting over the mental obstacle of being able to disconnect and being at peace about it so you can enjoy and be present with your family, right?
Mm.
And so, but you got to start. And so if you don't start, you're never going to get there, because even if your business is doing 30, 50, $100 million a year revenue, that mental roadblock is always going to be there if you don't start to exercise that muscle of taking a little bit of time off and trusting the team that you've trained. And really, they are incapable. Either you have to figure out what needs to be retrained or maybe who needs to be replaced, right? So you've got to start to figure this thing out so that you can step away.
And we don't expect you guys to figure out all this stuff on your own because there's a lot of moving pieces here.
Yeah, get some help, talk to the team, talk to your spouse. There's definitely resources around you. Call us, whatever. But the first phase of starting to build that legacy business is to take that time away from work. So you got to set the time, whether it's a day, a half day, or whatever, and start somewhere and then get, okay, how do I prepare the team to work without me?
When you get home from work, put the phone down, get the whole family, go for a walk around the block and just check in with everybody. Get a little bit of exercise and connect with them.
Yeah. And so whatever, the other thing to look at too, as you're building your legacy business, is to understand, what does a legacy business look like? So we kind of started talking about it, which is number one, it's a business that you can actually step away from and it still runs and it still grows. Values family over finance. I've seen some of the great family businesses that we've been around, and whether it's at a conference or we've talked or met, have on our podcasts, or clients, the ones that are building, the ones that really understand the value of family over finance, over money, that family comes first, they're still highly, highly successful. They've just gotten over the myth that you have to hustle and grind and not enjoy.
Well, and I think some of them even have stories where they were hustling and grinding and their family was at jeopardy, but they were able to turn it around and they were able to wake up and think, okay, this is not what I want. I realize we're not going down a good path here.
Yeah. And so valuing family over finance, and go, whatever, what happens, family comes first. And then you figure out, so that's kind of basically establishing a boundary, right? Because if you don't establish the boundary of when it's family time versus business time and all that, it's going to be, business is always going to infiltrate and invade the household and the conversation and all that stuff, right? Also getting over the fact that happiness can't come from the business,
Mhm.
because I think that's where a lot, especially when you're grown up as a high achiever, is, whether it's like for us in sports, we always grew up in sports. It's always about winning, right?
Performance.
Competition and all that. And our value, our identity gets tied into our achievements.
Mhm.
So whether it's our grades in school or some achievement in sports, whatever, and then what college you get into, what job or company that maybe hires you, all those kinds of things. We're always looking for that award, that thing, that pinnacle that creates happiness. We think that creates happiness, but it always goes from one thing to another, right? And one achievement to another. And
Kind of
that's why,
fleeting.
so that's why we're never truly happy, and we're always pursuing the next thing. And because we were thinking, we're kind of raised or conditioned, it's very subconscious, but we're conditioned to think that our happiness is going to come from the things we do and what we achieve versus our family or relationships. Because that's not, when we grow up, that's not what was taught as far as what success looks like. That comes from relationship, comes from your health, right?
Mhm.
That's never been taught. That's never been
No,
said.
I was always taught as doing. You have to be doing something.
Yeah. And so that's why we've been in this grind. You get caught in the grind. And so I think getting over that mindset, number one, is understanding that if you take a good, honest look, that no matter what milestone goal you hit in your business, whether you meet that first million, that first 10, that first 30, or whatever, right? No matter what milestone you hit, that never translate into long-term happiness. It's like, cool, and then we move on. Versus when we are, especially when things aren't going well at home, right? Then we're constantly pursuing other things because we can't get it at home. But when things are going well at home with your spouse, your kids, and all that, there's just an extra layer. Like, I think people hold their head up a little bit higher. I think it's still subconscious, but if you think about, whether it's us or people around us that we know, like really couples that are really killing it both in business and at home, there is a air of confidence. It's not arrogant confidence. It's just that quiet confidence that you're like, you really kind of respect, and you go, hey, that's something about that, right? I mean, am I on the right track?
No, you are. Because I mean, somebody said this kind of goes along the lines of that. Somebody was saying, "Oh my gosh," when they got to know us a little bit, they're like, "You guys really are fun." It's not just like we just heard it or saw it somewhere, that you really are.
Yeah.
And
It's
then that means you have to have time to do that, and you have to have time for your relationships.
Yeah. And so certainly, I'm sorry. So yeah, so happiness can't come from just your business. It doesn't come from your business or achievement. So if that's the case, and that you kind of feel yourself, or you take an honest assessment, that's what's kind of driving you, right? Is that constant achievement, then that is a warning sign. And so how can all this stuff help a business grow, right? We're talking about, really developing, setting the stage up to build a business that's a legacy business, people that want to take it over. And we talked a lot about family, taking time off, work-life balance and stuff, but how does that really help the business grow? Well, when you are taking, number one, understand the importance of taking time away from business, right? Even just for the weekend or a day or whatever, and value family over finance, family over the business, and really having everything in the proper perspective. It's going to flow down to how you treat your team members and ultimately the culture of the organization, right? When you work for somebody that's always work, 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 they're going to have that same expectation with everybody else. And it creates, and I've been in that culture when I worked for Coca-Cola. I mean, it was definitely hustle and grind. And, I looked at these executives that were around for decades. I mean, basically grew up in Coca-Cola, basically, and how unhealthy they were in so many different ways, both their own personal health and then relationally, and just a whole host of issues. And the culture was just like that, right? And I knew I worked there only less than 3 years, and I knew that wasn't the place I was going to spend the rest of my career. And so, but I knew it was going to look good on my resume. So I wanted to make sure I stayed there. I want to make sure I stayed there at least 2 years. This is old school when people really looked at how long you were at an employer. Because if you're one of those people that bounced around a lot, people kind of got suspicious and didn't want to take a chance on you. Things seem to be a little bit different these days. But anyways, all to say, I want to make sure I stayed there at least 2 years before I went and looked into the industry that I really wanted to be in, which is where I ended up spending the bulk of my career in pharmaceuticals. But that culture just was so toxic. And it was different when I got into the pharmaceutical industry, how much how much more professional it was, how much more respect there was for people. Totally different, and definitely comes from the top down. I can definitely tell you. And so anyways, all that to say is valuing family over finance, understanding, putting work-life balance, understanding the big picture, and knowing that you can still achieve, your business can still grow in a healthy way, but you can still enjoy life now. As the business owner, that's going to flow down to the rest of the organization, because you want your people to be able to value that too. And people want that, right? They don't want their job. They don't want to be married, just like you don't want to be married to your business. People don't want to be married to their job. Otherwise, what happens is you just get a lot of turnover all the time, right? And so that's how this will help your business grow. When you're healthier, when you have the right perspective and you understand, you put your priorities first before the business, and it goes to the rest of the organization, you're going to build a very, very healthy culture, and they're going to be higher performing too, right? You don't have to, like in Coke is more lead by be authoritarian, lead by fear kind of thing, versus the companies I worked for afterwards was more through respect, right? And you can't say that leading through fear was better than the other one. In fact, I'd have to argue the opposite, where leading with respect was definitely a lot more healthier. And these were big business and we're making a lot of money. So anyways, yeah, I think that's what I got to say, honey. My wife's laughing at me.
No, totally agree with you.
So hopefully that kind of dispels the myth around hustle and grind. And it's not just, again, this isn't just from our perspective. This is also, we've been doing this podcast for 5 years, and we've interviewed a lot of couples that have just amazing business, but also prioritize their relationship first. And I can tell you that I think we'd all love to have their business.
Yeah, I think we can work hard and have a successful family life as well.
Yeah. So if this has touched your heart, if you've been nodding your head, then you need to share this with another married entrepreneur that needs to hear this. So go ahead and share this, send it, email it, whatever, but please share this, and we would love a review as well. So go ahead and leave reviews. Until next week, God bless and thrive in tandem. Thank you for listening to the Thriving in Tandem podcast. Please visit our website, marriedentrepreneur.co, for a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business succeed.
And feel free to leave us a review and share this episode with another married entrepreneur. That would mean so much to us.
See you next week.